Hello?
Hi.
Hello. I don't think there's very many people here yet. Hello, Jeremy. I see you.
I fucking see him.
Shenanigans. I see you too. Did you get a haircut? Are we talking about me? Yes.
I was gonna say your hair looks nice.
Oh, thanks. That was like forever ago. I guess it has been 3 weeks.
We didn't do this for like 3 weeks. My hair just became less purple.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
With the dye. I'm gonna open chat on something else real quick. I stole your purple? That is true.
You did. You sapped the purple energy straight from me.
Shannon's hair is V purple right now.
It's very, very pretty, yes.
I'm super down.
I need to redo mine. It's like bright, but it's always weird to go to like from light to really dark hair. Like you'll walk past a mirror and be like, who's that?
Yes, this chat window. This is the one I want. And then we just close that. Hey, we're not dropping frames this time. Super
Oh,
plus.
yay.
Pax Communications unfucked their thing for like, you know, right now.
A minute.
Yeah, so we'll see how that continues.
Yeah, I think we're all set this time with the no frames dropping and my mic doesn't suck. Some on my fiance's computer.
Yeah. Every time I go past my mirror at home, I'm like, what? Yeah, your hair is V purple. All right. Well, let's just get into it. People will filter in eventually. Today's episode is cleverly titled by me, Planning to Fail. Or basically just how to create your games around your players, because no amount of planning can get you ready for what your players are going to come up with to do. And if you have all this elaborate stuff and story and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail because your players are not going to do what you want them to do ever. Like 100% of the time, they're not going to do what you want them to do. So this episode is all about how to kind of work out your sessions so that you can go with your players more so than like what you had in mind or whatever. Very fitting GIF. I need to see it. Yes, V fitting. Let's put that down. Okay. It's like smooth jazz stuff thing that I've got going for the background. Super groovy. You probably can't hear it, but trust me.
That dog is definitely me.
Yeah.
I feel it.
So let's see. What do I have on the thingy? Cannot hear the smooth jazz? Really? Is Shannon the only person that can't hear it? Because
I can't hear it.
I know you can't. You were the person I was referring to when I originally said that. I guess I'll bump it. Let me know if you can hear it.
Make it
now.
louder than us so all they hear is smooth jazz.
Yeah,
That's how you
us,
DM.
please.
You listen to very loud smooth jazz.
Don't listen to smooth jazz when you DM, unless you want to put your players to sleep. So let's see. What's the first thing that I have? The first thing I have is, where do you want your story to go? So I think this is like when you make your game, before you even sit down with players, like your idea of what you want your story to be. So like, do you want it to be a pirate adventure or something? I think it's a good idea to know like what you plan to be the end goal of your idea, and whether or not it's based around a specific person or like a specific treasure or like a god or something.
Recently, well, not recently. Like when I start all of my sessions, I don't even have an idea because I just let the players pick. Because like the very first session I ran, I tried to have an idea and they were all like, "Oh, not interested." Well, their characters weren't interested and they apologized. They're like, "Sorry, we're not taking any of your hooks. Our characters just don't care." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sorry."
Well, and that's part of the like setting expectations thing too, is that we talked about last episode, is if you come up with a campaign idea, so I want to do that Castlevania thing that I was talking about. So I came up with that campaign idea, and that you know, that's my idea. And now that I'm looking for players potentially, that's one of the setting expectations things that we're having. Is like, hey, this is this theme for this. Like, you make a character that's in that theme.
Yeah.
So that way
we do that with the one shots in the Discord, even where it's like, this is the theme.
Yeah.
Show up with this, please.
And I mean, it doesn't like, I don't feel like it hinders character choice for the players really at all. It just gives them somewhere to like start.
Yeah.
Because I mean, really, you can still kind of do whatever you want as a character as long as you're like in that realm of theme, in that realm of Castlevania or a pirate or whatever.
Make an adventurer, please, for the love of God.
Yes.
Something like that, vague, but like, yeah, know where you're going.
But yeah, so once you have like an idea and you had that conversation with your players and all that kind of stuff, and you have your first session or whatever, and your players make their choices throughout their games, you then need to decide what is important about your theme, and that's what you need to stick with in planning. So for one of my games, a certain couple NPCs or characters are the story focus. Welcome, Gus. And because they're the story focus, I need to adapt how the story goes so that they're involved no matter what the players do. So session 2, the players could do something completely off the rails that takes them in the complete opposite direction of where these two NPCs are. I need to fix the story so those two NPCs are going to be where they're going. So I think that's the second most important part of that, is just figuring out what's important to your game. Like, is it just a theme, or is it a god specifically, or like... And it also kind of depends on like what is easier and not easier to do. So I've been DMing for a really, really long time. So I'm good at like critical thinking decisions on the fly as soon as my characters say or do something. Or my players, I mean. But for some people who just started out DMing, or maybe even Sarah or not, that might not be the case. You know, those quick second decisions about your entire story that you had laid out that you're thinking about might not be something that you can easily just change.
The other day I was looking at my doc, because I have this huge doc for my session, which is like my baby basically, and I was just like, what happened to my story? Because I keep having to change so much on the fly. I'm just like, my players say I'm pretty good at it, but like, I don't know if they even know what they're doing.
Sarah, thank you for the host. So if any of you are new here, I see a couple new names that are lurking, so I'm not going to call out or anything, but this is a like podcast type show. Unlike the show on Sunday where I don't interact with chat at all, this is very chat driven. So if you guys have questions or ideas or thoughts about what we're talking about, throw it up in the chat so we can see it. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, maybe take your experience level into account, and that's okay. But like, maybe for Sarah, who feels like she's not very good at those types of decisions, just having a general theme kind of game might be better than having a game based on a person.
Yeah. Especially since my players tend to latch on to the wrong NPCs, and I'm just like, no, guys, the other one, please. No, you can't add that one to your party. Wait, no. It's been like 6 sessions and they're still with this one NPC, and I'm like to forcibly remove them from the game.
So yeah, and that's the thing too, is like if it's based on just like a theme, like man, I don't know, death is not coming for people like it should be or whatever. That's just your theme, and kind of whatever happens with your players is what happens. Then it's easier for your players to kind of do whatever they want, and for you to just like plan session to session or anything like that.
Good advice, actually, because I totally did that, where I made each of the players really, really important in the the theme that I came up with. And then sometimes they just do the complete opposite thing, and that's why my story has been rewritten 3 times since I started it. But I kind of enjoy that anyway, so that's fine for me. But for some people, they would be really upset that their story keeps getting thrown away.
Well, and then for me, it's like I am very, very story heavy. Like as a person, I like to write, which doesn't always lend to DMing, but it's, since I'm good at those quick second decisions about where I need to put people or anything like that, it probably also depends on the players, doesn't it? 100,000% it does, which is why we said at the beginning, like, think about what you want your game to be theme wise or not, and then tell that to everybody before the game even starts. Sarah brought up our one shots that we've done in the Discord recently about how we've been like, hey, we're doing a pirate game, like, come with a pirate. Which has actually worked out really well. Those Discord one shots have gone super well. At least the last 2 that I ran. The game that Gabe ran was really, really well done too, and Rory's that I played in was really, really good. I'm surprised at how well that's like working out.
You've got like the good DMs in there, waiting for Gus to run a game.
For
the game that Gus DMs for me and a few other people, we really we just roll with it. Like when Gus gives us a theme, but not all players are going to roll with it, sadly.
Yeah.
It's just a really good group that Gus has. We had such a good game last Saturday. I'm still thinking about it.
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at you, Gus.
Well, I'll get you to DM me once. Somebody let me play, for God's sake.
I'll one day run a game in there too, and I'm not dead busy all week.
But so for me, it's more important for me to have something more focused, like a treasure or a villain of some kind or something like that, that gives me something to plan for multiple sessions with, that helps me specifically like kind of move their focus to that direction or that character or whatever. And I'm very easily able to, oh crap, they went the wrong way, all right, I'll just do it this way. But that definitely takes years of experience to deal with as a player first, for sure. Do you want to join us Saturday, either the 11th or the 18th? I assume you mean August, and yes, I'm down, 11th and 18th.
Join the 11th. The 18th is when I'm going to be gone.
Sure, whatever again.
Yeah, something that happened I think it happened to Gus, if I'm remembering correctly. Her character was being added to the game as a player, and the players bypassed where she was being kept in the prison.
Yep.
And the DM didn't move her. They just let them go. I'm like, fucking move her. Don't just let them not do it, because I did something similar to add a player to my game, and they walked past the room, so I just dragged the token over to the next room that they went into and made them go in there. You hear a noise from this room. Do you want to check it out? Like, oh my god.
What's next on my little thingy thing? Our little thingy thing. What about your story is most important to you? Oh, is that your first game? What a great first game to have, Gus.
Yeah.
So that goes back to the last thing I said, but like, so you can have a theme or whatever, then you need to think about what about that theme you're specifically looking for. So if it's pirates, are you specifically planning on doing ship to ship stuff, and that's really what you wanted to do? You just wanted a bunch of sea type stuff? Or if it's about a specific villain or about a specific like treasure or something, what about that villain or treasure is the reason that you're writing that story? I keep using like the villain NPC thing, but it's about a game that I can't really talk about.
I'm like sitting here too, like wanting to say something, but I like can't because I think my players will listen to this, and I'm just like.
I know for a fact one of my players is listening to that.
I know Rory listens, and I can't. I already tell him way too much.
Yeah, same. I have that problem too.
Shannon goes,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah,
Eyes
no.
emoji. No.
It's 100% your game, and it will not be spoiled. Nice try, though.
Yeah, I really like making villain. Like, I like taking players' like backstories and then taking my like League of Villains or whatever I have, and then sticking the villains into the players' backstories. Like, this guy did something to you here. This guy did something to you there, and then like. And then they got to beat the big bad guy that told them to do that thing or something like that. That's my trope.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Rat was going to be a villain. Yeah. We've all heard the story of Rat Sinna.
Yeah, we have.
But so it's important, like, if you can single out what it is about that person or that theme or whatever that you want to focus on, like that's what made you originally think about it, it'll be a lot easier to then change something about the way your story is going when your characters decide to do something else. Which brings me to my next point, which is equally as important: when to put your party on rails and when to let them loose. And you brought up the perfect time to put your party on rails. When you're introducing a new character, Jesus, and they're in like a jail or something like that, and your party's about to like bypass them in some way, put your party on rails. It's okay to like force an encounter sometimes. I obviously don't make that the whole thing because the point of D&D is for the players to tell a story together, but it's okay to make sure that a point or a plot hook or something happens, especially if you know that your players are just going to be like, oh, and walk right past it.
Towards an NPC that's unrelated to story again. Like, okay, bye.
There's also a lot of ways to set up the rails. There is a lot of ways to set up the rails. So for that prison example, where Gus's character is like locked in a cell or whatever it is, it's very easy to have, if you're like infiltrating the prison, have guards in front of the door, so the only way that there's possible for them to go is towards Gus's character, or a loud explosion in a certain direction if you know your characters are like fighty, and they're gonna run off at the face of danger, like towards danger.
Most players would.
It's definitely about like knowing your players a little bit, but it's not that inconceivable. Also for rails, I can talk about this because it's already happened. My characters in my Friday game, which is the game that I probably spend the most time on, recently teleported to a different continent. Pretty much against their will. All of them standing on like a portal inside a temple as they were doing a job for an emperor. I didn't wait for them to all physically stand on the portal. I let them go into the temple. I let them look around the temple or whatever. And then once they had like sufficiently like looked around and like interacted with things, I said, okay, when you guys all stand on the center of this thing, all of a sudden you are, you're teleported through time or whatever. So doing stuff like that gives you the chance to like do something like that without one of your players ruining it unintentionally. Because it could have very well easily been like, I wasn't standing on that, I was like 3 blocks this way or whatever. And sometimes you'll have a rules lawyer that'll be like, well, you didn't give me, I didn't get a save, I was over here. But like, you gotta like learn when story is more important than mechanics and vice versa. In my opinion.
So glad none of my players talk about mechanics all the time. I would die because I don't want to have to open the book while I'm trying to roleplay. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's just roleplay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something that I forgot.
Oh no, just cut me off. Gets sucked into a portal as a small bat. Yeah, I guess you were technically still a bat.
Oh my god. Well, she wasn't standing on the portal, so
yeah,
she was floating above it because she was a bat.
She was in that space. That's all that mattered to me.
Druids.
I don't remember if she turned into a bat because she's a druid or if she turned into a bat because she's got that dumb cloak that I shouldn't have given you all.
I know that feeling. Oh, I shouldn't have given you that. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is recently in my session, I've got basically what you said, actually, the death thing. It's like a deathy themed thing because everybody made deathy characters, and I was like, all right, death gods it is. And they've been approached by gods a lot recently, and like a lot of the players are just like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. But I don't care. Like, they can take it and it's fine, but if they don't take it, then they got that information. So it's like either way they got what they needed, I guess. So it's like players aren't always going to take like the cool weapon or whatever because like their character wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But they did get the information they needed to like progress in the story.
And it's important. That's a good thing that I want to bring up that's not necessarily on this topic, but it just got brought up. If your players play to their characters, reward them. Give them DM inspiration. We just did that one shot where one of the players' characters like did something that was so completely like against the party, but it's what his character would have done. And like meta-wise, it's really easy to like accidentally meta when you're like in an encounter and it's like you versus the DM kind of because it's an encounter. But if they still go, nah, my character would do this because that's just how he is, even though it's worse for them, reward them. Give them DM inspiration. It doesn't have to be a D6 either. It can be a D8 or a D12 of DM inspiration.
I give them a whole D20 for inspiration, and they just get advantage on a roll.
I mean, that works too. That's another way to do it for sure.
We actually do a role play where all of the players vote for the person that they thought was the best at role playing for the night. So basically all of my players have an advantage roll on their character sheet that they can use at any time because they all role play really well. But that's fun too. That gets other people role playing. Like, it sounds like an elementary school thing, but it works.
I mean, if it works, it works. Yeah. But what were we talking about? We were talking about Rails. So going with that, you need to figure out what NPCs or areas are 100% needed for the story, your story to continue. If you need them to go to Taldora to see this wizard, and for whatever reason the wizard's tower is in Taldora, then like maybe start putting breadcrumbs in front of them, rail tracks to get their ass to the city of Taldora. And it might not be like as fast as you want, and there can still be encounters along the way to Taldora. There can still be things for the party to kind of like make up their own decisions about while you go, like that make it feel like it's not as railroaded. You don't have to say like, oh, okay, well, you guys are going to Taldora next. Like, it's, you got to find a way to like make it so the players want to go there next.
Oh yeah, that's something. It sounds like your sessions are a little more open world, I guess you could say.
Mine are,
because
yeah.
my party started in an adventuring guild, and they're almost level 7, and they're still going to the same guild getting jobs. Like, they won't stop going to the guild.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's really easy for me to be like, and now you go here, because like that's what the guild master told you to do. And it's like, everything you just said was made so easy for me because they're really attached to this guild. Half of them want to like kill the guild master, and the other half are like really dedicated to her. It's just like
and I mean, that works out really well for you, and like you got, you know, lucky or unlucky or however you want to call it with that. But for me, like, I'm such like an open world, like I've got a huge campaign world, and I've got 2 campaigns running on the exact same timeline at the same time. One is the Sunday game that we play, and the other is my Friday night game. those characters could potentially intersect. Like the things that they're doing, that the world that's going on in the world will intersect with each other. So it's possible for like one group to be in the same city as another group. And I did that to myself more so because it was interesting to me, to have that kind of like weird, crazy dynamic thing going on. Like even all those one shots that I do are in the same world at the same time. They're just in a different part of the world, but they still affect like what's going on in the world. If any of you watched the last community night one shot, the party discovered a portal to the like ethereal plane. That portal exists now in my world. And if for whatever reason, one of those other two groups decided that they were going to go to that island somehow, that's now like an option, a thing for them to do. So I kind of did that to myself, but to me, it's just more fun to like have it's almost like my world is a player. And to me, it's more entertaining to like have that happening or going on or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's definitely for me and not for my players, probably. But
yeah, I feel that. I've got like this whole fleshed out thing, and I'm just like, they're having fun, but I'm also having a lot of fun right now.
And that's why I said, like, it's important, like, if you've got something going on like me where you need them to go to a different story or a different city or whatever it is, it's easier to, like, or it's not easier. That's when you need to, like, think about, like, okay, maybe I need to put them on rails because they're starting to not want to leave this city or not want to do this thing that I need them to do or whatever it is.
Yeah, you recently had players like swap characters out, right? Because they didn't want to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing. I need to catch up on that, but yeah.
So for the Sunday game, the Red Ivy game that we stream on Charity Top, two of the party members that were there, their characters didn't really fit what was going to happen for the story next. So I spoke with both of the characters offline and said, or both the players offline and said, hey, your characters are obviously not going to do what's going to happen, and that's perfectly fine. Your characters don't need to, but that means that they're going to walk away. So do you want to roll another character that would be in this, or do you just want to walk away from the game? I would understand if you did. No hard feelings, all that kind of stuff. And both of them are like, no, this gives me a chance to play this and that kind of stuff or whatever. You'll find out a lot of the times that a lot of people have a million character ideas, and they all kind of are hoping sometimes that one of their characters die so they can just play their next character idea that they're sitting on.
One of my players wants to switch. He's so indecisive. He's like, I have this idea, and I feel like my character wouldn't do this anymore. And I'm like, but would he? He's like, I mean, you can just play someone else if you want and give this character a break. And he's just like, no, I'll stick with him. I love this one. I'm just okay, just
yeah. And I mean, it's hard to, like, give up an old character and stuff too, but that's definitely something that you should plan for, especially if you're like me and you've got some story points that are hard story points. Like, this is going to happen. How your characters react around this happening is how your characters react around it happening, but it's going to happen regardless of whether or not you do something for it. So having some of your party members leave because of a hard story point is just like, that's real life. Sometimes people don't work out in a group or whatever. So yeah, that is important to me. And the ability to be able to talk to your players and be like, hey man, it's cool. If you don't want to play anymore, I get it. But unfortunately, like, the hard point is going to be there.
Yeah, because like, even if you have a good story going on or whatever, and you've got like, not all 6 people or however many people are always going to want to, like,
yep.
You can't pander to every single one of them all the time.
Yep.
Just got to make sure there's something for everyone at least a little bit at the time, I guess.
What did we have next? Letting the party make the important decisions. This is super important. Think about what you want in your session, so your next session or whatever, think about this is going to be the climax of the session or whatever. When your party gets there to that climax point that you thought about, let your party decide what they're going to do. Don't rail your party through your party finally meets the villain or whatever. Let your party at that point decide what they're going to do. Don't just auto win the villain or whatever, unless it's already a specific story thing that you've already built in for something else. Like that's an exemption, but
yeah, I've seen like I forgot who I was watching, but they like walked into the boss room and they got to talk for a few minutes, and then the DM was just like, "Okay, roll for initiative," and I was like, "I don't think they were done yet."
Yeah,
they weren't even fighting them.
Let your party make those kinds of choices, like when they're gonna jump into initiative, or when if it's hard to explain, like if your story involves the players going into a castle in like a city or something like that, but for whatever reason your players don't want to go into that castle, like they've got all these reasons for not going, then you just need to adapt whatever's going on inside that castle
dungeon later for something else.
Put it somewhere else. You can try to like railroad them towards that direction with like, you know, like loud noises or all the things that we talked about before. But if your players are insistent that they're not going to go there, let them make that decision and then just continue moving on with the session and take that dungeon or whatever that you had planned and put it somewhere else for sure. Mm-hmm. Because then your players don't feel like they're playing, they feel like you're reading them a story.
Ooh, that's happened to me too many times.
Right. And the whole point, actually it's on here, the difference between writing a book and letting a group of people tell a story is, in my mind, the whole point of D&D is a group of people coming together to create a story and to tell it to each other, like as it happens. And that's a lot different than writing a book and then reading it to the people that are sitting at the table. 9 times out of 10 people don't want to listen to your book.
Just write a book and like link them to it.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll read it. You can't like force people to sit down with you and play out your story so someone listens to you. It's so shitty.
Yeah. And it's kind of less fun for everybody. It's, at least for me as a DM, it's a lot of fun to like, for my players to like do something so completely against what I thought.
Yes.
Was like even remotely possibly going to happen in that encounter or with those people or whatever. So then I'm sitting here like, oh, and it's fun for me to like backpedal in my brain like, crap, okay, where do I put them? No, I need to do this now. Or like
what if you give them an item and then they use it and you're like, well, shit, like you're saying you shouldn't have given shit in that item or something. I don't know what it was. And it's like, oh, you shouldn't have that at this level. But if they've got it and they use it, then they got like this cool moment out of it, and it's really neat.
Yep. And I mean, if it breaks your game or if it breaks your style or whatever, then that's on you and whatever.
Yeah, it's you gave it to them. Yeah. It's your fault.
That's another thing about D&D that I think a lot of people don't really understand is that it's, at least for me, it is not DM versus player. And like, I hate going on like RD&D and seeing the amount of like people that post like, oh man, you could have killed them like this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the point. The point is for them to like have this cool story moment. And, you know, maybe one of them dies, but it was just because that was how the story happened. And it wasn't like something specific where, man, I won and fuck that guy. Loser. Yeah.
I feel kind of bad when a player even gets knocked out. I'm like, oh, I did that. I like feel bad with them.
And I mean, I'll joke a lot, like with Shannon specifically. I joke a lot about killing Amari, or man, it sucks that Amari is not going to be alive anymore, or whatever. But she knows very, very well that like I'm never going to just kill off a character. because I mean I wouldn't do that, but it is fun to like be the DM and like take a bunch of dice in your hand and do the
what every DM that has, whenever I use Ratsinus and he sends Coward out to do anything, the DMs just start rolling dice into the mic, and I'm like, no, stop it.
Yeah.
No, leave him alone.
That's how it should be.
No.
The dice is what everybody should be terrified of. And as a DM, it's okay to be terrified of the dice too. When your players roll a bunch of dice against one of your monsters, you can be like, oh no, man, this fight was supposed to go way longer.
Ugh. Yeah, that's another thing when the fight lasts like 3 rounds and it was supposed to take up the whole night. That happened to us on Saturday.
That's I think that's on the thing of stuff to do. Yeah, learning when to up or down scale encounters.
Yeah.
Learning when encounters should be deadly and when rolls should maybe just be in the party's favor. So sometimes you'll plan out an encounter and like you're going to think like, oh, it's not that bad. It's going to be hard, but they'll be fine or whatever. And then like they're rolling bad or whatever have you, or you're rolling super good and it's like constant nat 20s or something from you. Like maybe make that nat 20 at 19.
Yeah, my players know when they hear, oh no, they're like, uh-oh, what happened? I'm like, take a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I've fudged rolls. Everyone's fudged rolls before as a DM. I've never fudged a roll to hit a player too hard, though. I'm always like being nice to them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Usually, like if I'm ever like fibbing a roll or whatever, it's in the player's favor. It's always going to be like, okay, you've been hit like 4 times in a row. I need to not hit you this time. Otherwise your character is going to go down, and this doesn't seem like the right story moment for your character to die. It's like, oh, the warlock mind spiked one shot the guy. And then on the inverse of that, sometimes encounters are meant to be deadly. I'm very much the kind of person who believes my game should be challenging to the point where you don't think you're going to win, but then you win anyways and you feel really, really good about winning. But sometimes encounters are meant to be run away from, or not engaged with at all if you can, or snuck around with or whatever. And I purposely drop monsters or whatever that way outclass the CR rating of what they should be in my games, because it's fun sometimes for the players to be like, oh my god, what are we gonna do?
That happened to me in Gus's game. She put a dragon turtle in front of us. Like, we were on a boat, like an airship boat thing, and we like went past it, and we were all like, keep going, we're not dealing with that, not today, not ever.
Yeah, I mean, a dragon turtle is like 20. CR is ridiculous. Or the one shot that you guys just did on Wednesday, I think, or whenever we played
I heard about that.
The boss, if you guys had gone in there, all of you would have been dead. But I knew that. And I knew, like, when I was playing it, I was like, all right, it's a one shot, so I can get away with putting in an end boss that's absolutely going to decimate everybody, just because it's more story effective and it's better for, like, the drama. But they completely broke my plans. They went a completely different direction, and they left, officially ending it. So, like, having a bunch of night hags go against a bunch of level 2 peeps would be ridiculously.
I tweet about that?
That would be bad.
Wasn't night hags; they were sea hags, and I attacked my players with a coven of sea hags at level 2.
Yeah, that's a deadly encounter for sure.
I know. I wanted it to scare them. They beat it though, barely. The NPC was supposed to save them, but the NPC kept missing.
That's another thing too, is you can't like rely on one person to like save a party or not save a party or whatever. And like when you're building encounters, you need to build encounters not around one person in that encounter. Or like so one of my IRL games, I played Andor the Paladin, who's my brawler character. And he's like the campaign version of him is way more ridiculous than he is in the brawl. He's got like 120 HP at level 10. He hits like 8 times in a row for like 80 plus damage sometimes. Like he's stupid effective. But because of that, the DM that was playing that game would like only focus on him when he was making encounters. Like, what am I going to do to deal with Andor? And it ends up leaving all of your other players like kind of like out of the fight. Or
I've actually fallen into that as a DM. I let one of my players do this crazy homebrew thing for Monk, and he's fierce, but I let him do it because I wanted him to have fun. So I just upped the difficulty on things. But there's a barbarian in the party that I barely have hit at all because I've been so focused on the crazy monk.
Yeah.
So we're about to have some magic damage next fight, and it's gonna suck for that barbarian. But you know, I'm finally like back on like, oh right, there's other people I have to deal with too. I don't think the barbarian has like ever gone down at all.
That's another thing too, is like thinking, if you're the DM, like thinking as a monster would about who they're gonna hit next. That same DM on the other hand, Corey, if you're watching this, because I know you watched the last one, is very, very good about like, no, the monster would hit this person because they just hit him, or they were looking at him directly when they went in the room, or whatever. Whether or not the monster is a beast or a monstrosity or a human, like he always has like a reason for why the monster is attacking who it's attacking, which is very good. Like I took that completely from him, and like
that was my problem with the because you know, barbarians when they rage they take half damage from like physical
everything.
attacks.
It's
I think
anything melee.
And she's always doing the most, so like the monster is attacking her, but it's only doing half to her because it's physical damage, and then like, so I've just got to do more magic specifically for that character.
You got auto-modded, but you should be good, Necrotic Healer. I need to fix auto-mod again, apparently, because, like, Twitch, please.
Twitch, please.
Right. I mean, this
if people spec really well into their character, and then they're a barbarian, it's just like, okay, I guess you only fight mages. They're like, where did all the monsters go? Only wizards.
Well, and see, so this is a problem with 5e inherently, is that 5e is tailored for player characters and really only player characters. It is so much more insanely hard to kill a player in 5e than it ever has been. And for a lot of older DMs, it's hard to like rework your brain into like how 5e's system is written. Because player characters can spec themselves into being overpowered, but what that means is the DM is like, okay, now I need to kind of overpower my encounters.
The problem with that is that like you've got people in your game that are really spec'd well, and then there's people who are just kind of like casually, like they've got their RP character. Like the rogue in my party that I DM for has more intelligence than he does dex. Like, so then it like sucks for everyone else when this one guy min-maxed, but it's like, them's the breaks, I guess.
Yeah. A crazy near unhittable Dragonborn fighter by accident. Yeah, that's...
Accident?
I mean, it's possible to do, to be honest. I never expected Andor to be like this crazy tank type character. I mean, he was the paladin in the group, and he was like the only major melee person, so I knew he was going to be the tank, but like... after a magic item and then plus haste, like his AC was like 23 and like Andor is a ridiculous character. He should not have existed, but it's really easy to do that in 5e as a player. I
mean, it's almost easier as a DM to just get the book out and give your enemies like make your enemies based off of a player character sheet. Like,
I mean, sometimes if you've got the time for that, for sure. Let me drop this command real quick into chat. So that'll allow you guys to choose what we're going to cover next week. It's going to be dropped in the Discord and stuff as well. His AC is level 20, or his AC is 20 by level 5. Yeah. Yeah, it'll happen for sure.
That's one of the things about. I don't know if it was like this in other editions because this is the only one I've played. But I've noticed that I fall into always using a rapier because that's the dex, the high damage dex weapon, and then you've got the high AC and the initiative with dex, and then my strength is like 7.
Yeah.
Like every time. I'm bad about doing that because it's like I still want to hit.
Yeah, and I find like if I'm playing any type of Dexy character, I immediately like pick a rapier, and if I'm playing any type of strength character, I immediately pick a greatsword or a great axe. Like if I'm playing any type of ranger, I immediately pick a longbow. The longbow is the most OP weapon in this game.
Sharpshooter.
Like, well, I rarely use feats. Sharpshooter drives me nuts, but I mean, you can hit somebody at 600 feet for full damage without disadvantage.
I don't like all that weird shit about sharpshooter. I just like how it takes away some of the attack to hit and then puts it on the damage. I think that's really cool because it's like a wager. But all that other shit with sharpshooter, I'm just like.
Yeah, and I mean that's not the only thing with sharpshooter too. That's not the only feature that's like that. Like Grape Weapon Master or something like that is like that as well. And just like my guy's a walking, talking armory, and that works too. But then your DM needs to like, if he wants a deadly encounter, now I'm gonna have to up the CR above the creature or how many creatures I put in.
And then sucks for the rogue that has more intelligence than dex.
And it's always it's a fine balancing game, but that's kind of just something that's always been there in D&D specifically. And it's not really ever gonna go away probably. Let's see. Let the party make important decisions we talked about. Using the party's backstories to further your plans. Yes. I ask very, very specifically what backstories are, where you come from, like, is there anybody in your backstory or anything like that? Because I very specifically want to use your story against you or for you, depending on what it is. Shannon's character is a water genasi, and she doesn't really know anything about her childhood or anything like that, and that story is heavily God influenced. So like I threw in a whole interaction about her being the chosen one from Eldath, and all this kind of stuff because of her backstory and how her backstory was written. Like if her backstory wasn't there or wasn't written the way it was, then that wouldn't have worked out. And because that worked out the way it did, I've been able to like tailor everybody's like backstories all on this one like thing from her backstory. Yeah. All day, every day, backstories. What's it like when they break away from your plans, then you just don't have anything good to roll with? Do you kind of end the sesh for the day? So I think Sarah and I have both talked about that last episode. But
we just keep going.
Yeah. For me, hold on a second. Give me one moment. I need to let one of the collies out. I'll be right back.
Okay. Maud's gone. Tell me all about your OCs. I think he tends to take a break though. I tend to just keep going and pull things out of my ass, and then I back myself into a corner for later because my improv isn't the strongest in the world. Thank God. I'm glad they're smooching now. Jason.
So I was going to add to that.
There you go.
I don't know why I've been so bad with that lately.
I'm just watching your mouth move. I'm like, there he goes.
That it's okay to like, if you're new to it or anything like that, to just be like, oh, okay, well, we've gotten to the point where like I had prepared, so we're gonna have to like end it early tonight or whatever. That's perfectly fine. I would rather a DM end the game early than like play through something where he had no idea what was going on, or she had no idea what was going on, and like you're kind of like lost, and like those games are not very good. If you're like me, when all else fails, wing it and rewrite it later, which is what I do.
Yeah.
You just kind of let them play, you make stuff up on the fly, and you kind of like let it rewrite itself, and then you go back and like change what needs to be changed because of what happened.
I said that at the beginning about how my session notes, I just looked back at them the other day and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, like,
did I write this?
On Discord, my Dragonborn monk warlock was a someone born to a clan, tried hard to make people realize the Dragonborn aren't monsters, but in doing so, they don't do what Dragonborn are born to do. After my guy brought it up much, he was kicked out. Then he found an ancient dragon. Yeah, yeah.
Being a warlock is just enough for the DM. That's just giving them knives to begin with.
I have this thing where I like to make my warlocks have seizures.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I remember listening to that episode because I was excited because their god is halal.
Yeah. For Kelsey's character who plays a pixie dragon, who plays a warlock in my Friday night game, they like time stopped for her as well. She had the meeting with her archfey, and then apparently to her party, she had been having a seizure for 2 minutes on the road, like that they were traveling on, and they were like trying to figure out what was wrong and like what they could do, and all that kind of stuff. But like, there's so much stuff that you can do with warlocks, it's ridiculous. So definitely with classes, make sure that you add their class into the game and try to do something for everybody. Sometimes you can't just call it talks to him, but the DM could do anything with it if you wanted to, like talking through it. Yeah, for sure. Or like
that kind of shit,
like talking through like a grimoire or something too. But yeah, make sure you do something for everybody, at least as much as you can. For some people it's harder, like for sorcerers, for me it's harder because nothing gave you your power. You just kind of...
Ooh, I wrote a really interesting thing for the sorcerer that just joined my party. I don't know if she'll listen to this or not. But basically, like, her character's like, his ancestors were a bunch of evil red dragons, and he's gonna have to deal with that. So
right. And it's all about like finding.
Just die casually.
You're right.
No,
maybe
yeah.
Don't die.
Okay. Anyway.
Two sorcerers, but they both have weird power origin stories because sorcerers don't lend to a real reason for having the arcane. With warlocks, you get it from a deity. It's given to you as a gift, or a curse, depending on how you play warlocks. And as wizards, you studied it and you broke into the code of the arcane and you were granted it that way. But sorcerers are kind of just like, oh, hey, magic. Woo! So
Woo!
it's kind of like...
I like it. I think it's cool. But I guess as a DM, if you're trying to do something with it, because draconic sorcerers automatically, oh boy, someone fucked a dragon.
Yeah, and that's why they have it, yeah.
Anything could have happened. Yeah.
I always read the sorcerer, some event gave you your power as an invitation to write something for them. So the sorcerer I have on Friday night games, David, he got his power by finding like a staff in, maybe it's a wizard staff, maybe it's something else, in a like clearing in a forest as he was walking through, and he touched the staff, and that's how he got it. But he gave me that in his backstory. But because it was in his backstory, there's not like much I can do character progression wise on why he is the way he is, like with his powers and stuff like that. And that's the part that kind of sucks, like for David specifically. I'll be able to do character progression stuff with him story wise.
I have an idea for that. I'll message you.
Through other players. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But like, a specific like thing, like a god talking to him because he is the way he is, isn't really going to happen with his character because it doesn't really make the sense. He never noted an origin of the staff. I mean, yeah, I have ideas for like the origin of the staff and like where it comes from and stuff like that, but it's going to be up to him to discover that, and like make the right check marks in the box on like the I unlocked this part of the story in order for it to happen. We talked about when all else fails, wing it and write it later. I think we pretty much talked about everything. The last thing that we have, which is the most important to both of us,
I bolded it.
Yeah, and wrote
made it purple.
Take campaign notes during your session. Go back and read them. Can he just like walk past those check marks? So yeah, for David's character with that staff, I have ideas, but it's very possible for him to just, those couple check marks that I have, for him to just not notice them or not pick them up or whatever it is. And then it would be up to me to decide whether or not it's important enough to make sure that he is like, make sure that he's either finding the next ones that I lay down or that it's not important enough that it ruins the game for him or whatever. Thank you for the follows, Gus and Necrotic Healer, and hello.
Hi, RJ. That's my friend.
Good. But yeah, so take campaign notes during your session. Do not rely on one of your players who happens to write a super sick journal about stuff.
Shut up.
Yeah. To like remember all the stuff that happened. Or here's the thing that happens to me all the time. Players will go into a shop and they'll talk to an NPC that doesn't exist, and I create this NPC, and then they leave the shop, and then I don't write that NPC's information down, and then 4 sessions later they come back to town and go back to that shop and want to talk to that same NPC because they remember them, and the players remember who they are, and I have no idea what I wrote down or anything.
Yeah. That's good.
That happens to me constantly. I'll never learn my lesson. But then the go back and read them too is make sure that you like go back and like study up on your own stuff, because
don't be me and then 2 weeks later look at your notes and feel like somebody else wrote them.
Yeah.
Don't. Just read your notes.
That's probably the most important thing out of all of this. But yeah, any other questions? Any questions?
We were gonna do silly questions at the end, so it didn't derail the whole thing. Putting the viewers back on rails.
If you've got silly questions too, go for it. I'm just gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Familiars can't pee because they have no need for waste.
But they are real.
Sure. They can be as real as your character wants to believe that they are. It doesn't change the fact that they're
real. Coward is real.
So no. Can familiars eat? No.
Eat. I think that they could RPE. They don't.
I mean,
have
they could
to
pretend to eat, like the action of like an otter familiar picking stuff up and putting stuff in his otter mouth. It's fine, but he's not physically eating.
Because if he ate, then he'd have to pee.
Oh my god. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. All right. Yeah, so to sum it up, what do you want out of your story as the DM? Like, what's your main focus? What's your main theme? And then learn to just pick that theme up and put it in different places when your characters decide they want to go completely somewhere else, which will happen. Your characters will 100% not do what you want them to. And read your notes. Take your notes first and then read them second.
Please take notes to begin with.
Take notes.
Yeah.
Murder hobo. Are you saying
not a question?
Are you saying should I allow murder hobos?
throwing the story out the window.
No.
Yeah.
There's consequences for murder hoboing in my games, and it's severe and efficient and quick. Bahamut does not fuck around.
Bahamut comes in with a gun.
Don't read the non-existent notes, please. No, for me, murder hoboing and like trying to do that, like I'm very clear with my set of expectations, like no evil characters or whatever. If you come in with an evil character, that's fine, but be prepared when an entire city guard regiment comes at you and they're all like level 16 fucking veterans. Like, good luck.
Oh, that happened. Well, not that specifically, but in my session, I accidentally made like this notorious like bad guy in my session because he was just an NPC that swindled the party, and then he fit the bill to be at this dinner party that they showed up at or whatever, and the players automatically like charged him, and one of them like drug him out of the room and tried to fight him, but he's level 12 and they're level 6.
Yeah.
So he got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
And he's just always had that level 12 character sheet. Like, sorry, that's just
that's what he is. Just because you're not that doesn't.
Yeah, it was just really funny.
Lawful evil is the only one that can work in a normal story. It can, but you need to play it very carefully.
I have a neutral evil character actually that works really well in a normal game. He's my sorcerer.
All right. Well, do you have anything else?
Read your notes. Take your notes.
Read your notes.
That's all I've got.
All right. Well, I definitely thank you for hanging out. DM poll again. Let me just do this. So that'll be the topics for next this podcast thing, which will be on the date
7th of August.
7th, yes. This is a lot of fun for me to do, and I'm sure it is for Sarah as well, or she would still be here.
Still be here.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we're trying to take this, not necessarily this show, but this whole channel as seriously as possible. We really want to be able to like help people, and D&D is a very, very big passion of mine specifically. You guys have been in that Discord, the few of you that are here that are talking and stuff. It's a great community that we've already built, and we're just trying to build it a little bit more. So you guys have any friends or anybody that you think is interested in D&D, or that you think might be interested in just hanging out with like-minded individuals or anything like that, please send them the Discord link. Let them know about it, or tell them about the shows. Also, this will be up on YouTube tomorrow, so you can watch it later if you missed the beginning or whatever. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on the 7th.
Bye-bye.
Bye.